Hello, this is Judy, and for the next hour, I will be reading from the March 16th, 2026 issue of the Toronto Star on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. I will do my best to pronounce all names and words correctly, yet please forgive me if I do not. And here's our first article. It's under Ontario. Doug Ford urges Ottawa to legalize pepper spray for self-defense, start DNA collection for people arrested for sex crimes. Under the Criminal Code, pepper spray is classified as a prohibited weapon, defined as any device designed to be used for the purpose of injuring, immobilizing, or otherwise incapacitating any person. And this article is written by Sadine Mohsen, who is a staff reporter, and that's Mohsen. Premier Doug Ford is calling on the federal government to legally allow people to use pepper spray for self-defense and make DNA collection mandatory for people arrested for sexual offenses. It's time we put the rights of victims first, not those of criminals, Ford said in a statement posted to X on Monday morning. On Saturday, Ontario Attorney General Doug Downey sent a letter to the federal government asking it to legalize the use of pepper spray for self-defense. He wrote that it could give vulnerable, law-abiding citizens a practical, immediate tool to defend themselves. Under the Criminal Code, pepper spray is classified as a prohibited weapon, defined as any device designed to be used for the purpose of injuring, immobilizing, or otherwise incapacitating any person. Ford also said they wanted to make DNA collection mandatory for people arrested for sexual offenses. In his letter, Downey said they also wanted to pursue victim notification services when there is a DNA match in the database, so survivors were informed, supported, and protected in sexual offenses. And Sadine Mohsen is a staff reporter with the Toronto Star. You can reach her at her email, which is samohsen at symbol THESTAR.ca. Her next article is under the GTA, and the title is Ford Government Says Public Safety Concerns Behind Decision to Drop Funding for Supervised Consumption Sites. The province said it will stop funding 2 sites in Toronto, 2 in Ottawa, as well as individual sites in Niagara, Peterborough, and London effective June 13th. And this article is written by Omar Mosleh, Mosleh, who is a staff reporter. The Doug Ford government said it's eliminating funding for 7 supervised consumption sites in the province in response to public safety concerns. In a statement, the province said it will stop funding 2 sites in Toronto, 2 in Ottawa, as well as individual sites in Niagara, Peterborough, and London effective June 13th. This latest step responds directly to local concerns over public safety associated with these sites and furthers the government's plan to fund treatment and lasting recovery from addiction rather than continued public funding of drug injection sites, the government said in a news release Monday morning. Premier Doug Ford has long said he's opposed to the sites because he believes they trap people in a cycle of addiction. Advocates say they're a crucial piece in the continuum of care that meets people where they're at until they can access treatment. Condemnation of the government's decision came swiftly on Monday with the HIV Legal Network and the HIV and AIDS Legal Clinic Ontario calling the government's decision a deadly move. This decision to inform sites of their defunding and closure late on a Friday afternoon when the government of Ontario thought no one was watching underscores how indefensible it is. There is near unanimous consensus about the negative effects of SCS closures. In Monday's statement, Health Minister Sylvia Jones reiterated that the government is focused on treatment and recovery. Through our almost $550 million investment to establish HART hubs across the province, we are ensuring people struggling with addiction can access the care and supports they need to break the tragic cycle of addiction and rebuild their lives while protecting Ontario communities, she said. The province implemented the province-wide Heart Hub model nearly a year ago after 9 sites closed due to the Community Care and Recovery Act prohibiting them from operating within 200 meters from schools and daycare centers. They were meant to be a one-stop shop where clients could access healthcare, including mental health treatment, and find avenues to get into housing and treatment. But they've also been criticized for not being a suitable replacement for supervised consumption. Advocates have said it's not practical to expect people to stop using drugs overnight, and removing the sites would leave them in precarious situations that puts them at greater risk of fatal overdoses. Clients have also told the store that getting into treatment or housing hasn't gotten any easier. In Monday's statement, the government said 27 of 28 Heart Hubs are operational and that the model will add nearly 900 supportive housing units and has delivered care through more than 100,000 client interactions. It's unclear what exactly that care entails, as the hubs offer a range of services. The government has not said whether it will reallocate public dollars that were flowing to supervised consumption sites to the Heart Hubs or other treatment initiatives. And Omar Moshli is a Toronto-based reporter covering social issues for The Star. You can reach him at his email, which is omarmosleh@simple, TAGSTAR.ca. This next article is under GTA, and the title is A Toronto Councillor Wants to Create Public Grocery Stores to Tackle Rising Food Costs. Would that work here? The pilot would have 4 city-run grocery stores across the city, prioritizing neighborhoods with limited access to grocery stores and lower-income households. And this article is written by Mandis Habiana, which is HABIBINIA of the City Hall Bureau. A city councilor has opened the door to what food experts are calling an exciting discussion: Toronto's first ever public grocery stores to tackle rising food costs. In a news release Thursday, Councillor Anthony Perruzza, and it's Perruzza, who is of the Humber River Black Creek, said he intends to introduce a motion during the March 26 council meeting to establish a pilot for 4 city-run grocery stores across the city, prioritizing neighborhoods with limited access to grocery stores and lower-income households. Council declared a food insecurity emergency in January. Council declared a food insecurity emergency in January. A draft of his motion also proposes waiving property taxes and development charges for the stores to help keep prices as low as possible. Things are just simply very expensive for people. I hear it all over the place wherever I go, Peruzzi said in an interview, pointing to New York City Mayor Zoran Mandami's similar pilot. We need to take bold steps, and this is one of them. Perruzza argued that the city has the money to do this in the blink of an eye, and when asked why not request a feasibility study first, the councillor argued it's best to learn by launching it, and a study might actually dissuade us from doing something like this. He pointed to New York City, which jumped straight to a pilot project. However, Mandami built his pilot based on an existing feasibility study elsewhere. During his mayoral campaign, Mandami referred to a 2023 study from Chicago, which concluded that municipal grocery stores were necessary, feasible, and implementable. Mandami adjusted the figures for New York City's higher cost of living and real estate and used it as the basis for a $70 million U.S. budget request for 5 public grocery stores across the city's boroughs. The pilot was funded by redirecting money from the city's FRESH program, which gives tax breaks to private developers to build grocery stores. Aaron Vansintjan, Vansintjan, a policy manager with Food Secure Canada, said he absolutely believes public grocery stores are feasible and necessary in large cities, given the market failure that only 3 companies control 75% of Canada's food market. So prices are through the roof. Vincent Chan, whose nonprofit researches and advocates to transform the national food system, studied how the idea could work in Canada alongside 2 U.S. researchers who did a similar study for Mamdani's campaign. Vincent Chan said their January study found if you do it right, public grocers could lead to price reductions of 25 to 30% in urban areas, which could save a family between $2,500 and $10,000 a year. The key part is that you need economics of scale. So think more like a Costco. You need to have large warehouses to be able to have a large procurement practice, Vincent Chan said. In other words, the more of something you produce or buy wholesale, the cheaper each individual purchase becomes. Perusa said while logistics size and scale need to be hashed out, he sees the stores charging people what it costs to operate them. The smaller your economy of scale, the more support it will need from the city or federal government, Vincent Chan said, noting that is the main reason other public grocers had to end, like in Kansas City, where they also struggled to break even due to high costs and a lack of expertise while competing with the private market. The idea that it would pay for itself needs to be looked into because the smaller you go, the more you're going to have to put into it. It's unclear right now what the price tag for 4 stores in Toronto would be. Government-run grocery stores could also promote urban agriculture and drive up demand for local products, said Michael Claessens, an assistant professor at the University of Toronto who studied food systems. It would not only give Canadian farmers greater economic stability, he said, it would safeguard shoppers from cost fluctuations due to supply chain disruptions and shifting tariff landscapes. These public grocery stores are already operating in many places in the world, he said. There are, for example, government-owned chains in Mexico and on U.S. military bases. The LCBO is also a public-run entity. An LCBO, bought for food, would yield great savings for residents, Claessens said. He added that Perusa's proposal could be feasible in Toronto, but it would be more feasible if it were a federal undertaking, a network across Canada with local markets that could benefit from a large economy of scale. At the federal government, there is an initial start-up investment, and it's really low as far as government programs go, Vincent Chan said. Vincent Chan and his colleagues' study found it would cost around $350 million to open 50 stores across Canada, 40 in urban areas, 10 in remote regions, 6 distribution hubs, and cover other logistics. Annual operating costs for things like labor and rent would be an additional $290 million, less than half the lifetime cost of one F-35 fighter jet. Canada recently cut a deal with the U.S. to buy 88 of them. Like with all new projects, Vincent Chan said the idea also depends on how Toronto City Council allocates its budget and how well the city can manage its stores. It's exciting to finally hear the discussion taking place seriously. Janelle Rayner-Davies, who's worked with food programs for over 20 years, said, it doesn't just make food more accessible, it stands behind the idea that food should be a public good or service and not a commodity, Rayner-Davies said. A nation that can't feed itself isn't a stable nation. And this article was written with files from Ben Cohen, and Mandis Habiana is part of the STARS City Hall Bureau based in Toronto. You can reach her at her email, which is mhabibina @THESTAR.ca. This next article is under Canada, and the title is Carney meets Keir Starmer, STARMER, in London as war in Iran disrupts shipping routes. routes. The leaders discussed the situation in the Middle East and condemned Iran's missile and drone attacks on civilians and energy infrastructure, according to a meeting readout. And this article is written by David Baxter of the Canadian Press. Prime Minister Mark Carney and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer agreed during a meeting in London on Monday that safe passage must be restored through the Strait of Hormuz. Their discussion came after U.S. President Donald Trump issued a public demand for other countries to send warships to keep the strait open. It's only appropriate that people who are the beneficiaries of the strait will help to make sure that nothing bad happens there. If there's no response, or if it's a negative response, I think it would be very bad for the future of NATO, Trump said in an interview with the Financial Times. About 1/5 of the world's oil normally ships through the Strait of Hormuz, which connects the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea via the Gulf of Oman. Iran has been attacking ships passing through the straits since the U.S. and Israel launched a surprise attack on Iran at the end of February. Iran also has said it will allow passage of some ships as long as they don't belong to U.S. or its allies. The war has driven up the global price of oil, which is expected to lead to higher inflation, adding to the affordability crisis in Canada and the U.S. Carney and Starmer met at 10 Downing Street Monday morning. A readout of the meeting from Carney's office mentioned only that the two leaders discussed the situation in the Middle East and condemned Iran's missile and drone attacks on civilians and energy infrastructure. A readout from Downing Street said the two leaders agreed on the need for stability and the protection of international shipping routes. Bill Blair, Canada's High Commissioner to the UK, said ahead of the meeting that Canada supports efforts to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, but is not getting directly involved in the conflict. The UK is considering sending naval assets to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. I think it's very important that the two prime ministers have an opportunity to discuss each of our collective approaches, Blair told reporters late Sunday. Trump has called on countries affected by the disruption in the strait, specifically the UK, China, France, Japan, and South Korea, to send ships and other military assets to help reopen it. Starmer told a news conference following his meeting with Carney on Monday that the Strait of Hormuz must be reopened, but it will not be a simple task. He added the UK is working with its allies, including European partners, to come up with a viable plan to reopen the strait as quickly as possible. He said he discussed this plan with Trump on Sunday. The Australian government says it won't send a warship to keep the strait open to international shipping. Australia's Transport Minister, Catherine King, told Australian Broadcasting Corp on Monday she was not aware of Australia receiving such a request from the United States. We won't be sending a ship to the Strait of Hormuz. We know how incredibly important that is, but that's not something that we've been asked or that we're contributing to, King said. At the beginning of Monday's meeting, Starmer wished Carney a happy 61st birthday, which he was celebrating on Monday. The leaders commended each other over their support for Ukraine in its war against Russia and discussed the importance of applying their shared values to other global issues. It was about a year ago today. I'd just been sworn in as Prime Minister and came here, and we agreed to work closely on a number of international issues and also to tighten our bilateral ties, Carney said. Now, of course, the number of issues has multiplied. I think the opportunity we've got to put together our values, our principles, and apply them to a very volatile world is really important this morning, Starmer said. Carney is scheduled to meet with King Charles on Monday before embarking on a personal vacation. Carney has said that during his vacation, he will be in close contact with his staff as volatility in the Middle East continues. The Prime Minister is expected to return to Ottawa on March 22nd. And this is with files from the Associated Press, and this is by the Canadian Press. The next article is under federal politics, and the title is Ottawa Puts $200 million into Space Launch Pad in Nova Scotia. Ottawa. The federal government is putting $200 million towards a Canadian-owned launch pad to send satellites into orbit. And this article is written by Kyle Dugan of the Canadian Press. The federal government is putting $200 million towards a Canadian-owned launch pad to send satellites into orbit. Ottawa will use the funds over the next decade to lease a space launch pad near Canso, Nova Scotia, which will serve as a foundation for future spaceport. Defense Minister David McGuinty announced the project today at a Canadian Space Agency lab in the nation's capital. Canada does not currently have the ability to launch space projects on its own and has relied on the United States to get its satellites into space. The initiative is part of the Liberal government's new strategy to build up the domestic defense industry. The 2025 budget earmarked $183 million over the next 3 years for establishing sovereign space launch capacities, and this article is by the Canadian Press. This next article is under the GTA. This 88-year-old's mobility problems kept her stuck at home in the winter. Here's how she got new confidence. UHN partners with Toronto Community Paramedics to hold clinics where seniors live and send paramedics to patients recovering at home to cut ER visits. And this article is written by Morgan Savareed Oaknet, and that's SEVAREID BOCKNEC, who is an investigative reporter. Dina O'Reilly holds her walker like it's a lifeline. This 88-year-old resident, who dresses with as many butterfly accessories as possible, lives in a high-rise condo at Church and Wellesley and has mobility problems that make it difficult for her to get regular blood tests during winter months. 2 years ago, she was approached by a woman working for the University Health Network who told her how a monthly program in her building may be able to help out. A partnership between UHN and Toronto Community Paramedics was starting to run clinics with educational sessions to check up on older adults in buildings with a high density of seniors. The program would also send paramedics directly to discharged hospital patients to check on them while they recover at home. Last weekend, the Toronto Star got to see the program in action. I got help getting my Cadillac, O'Reilly said of her walker, which she said was heavily discounted. She's now able to do her own shopping with more confidence, she said. The program's goal is to see and assess people who may face barriers accessing traditional healthcare services and treat them before they reach the point of needing to go to the hospital's emergency room. The top needs the UHN Toronto Community Paramedicine Partnership sees are blood sugar management, medication review, and assessments of hydration, respiratory ability, mobility, and home safety. The program also does general wellness checks. Since launching in late 2024, the program has seen more than 500 clients, averaging 3 visits per client. Those with chronic conditions have been seen 6 times on average, according to statistics provided by UHN. The average age of a person in the program is 70, but clients range in age from 37 years old to 90 years old. The model will soon be scaled up in the city to relieve pressure on acute care, with partnerships being finalized with other hospitals and Toronto Community Paramedics, a spokesperson from UHN said. The program runs with the goal of meeting people where they are, benefiting homebound residents in fragile states who may be exposed to illness in an ER. The program also aims to reduce instances of people coming to emergency that don't need to, said Melissa Chang, Senior Director of UHN Connected Care. Paramedics become a regular, trusted team with us in these buildings, and people really get to know them, said Chang. When Eduardo Menzies, who lives with diabetes, was discharged from the hospital following 2 surgeries, an ambassador from the building where he lives connected him with the program. The 62-year-old was paired with a nurse practitioner to help him monitor his blood sugar and received visits from paramedics who checked his blood pressure and dressings. Though he was readmitted to the hospital 4 times following his surgeries for conditions beyond what paramedics could treat, they made sure everything was normal and stabilized when they came back to check on him, Menzies said. Menzies said he also attends some monthly clinics in his building where paramedics lead a seminar on relevant health issues and provide each resident with a card that has the results of their monthly wellness check to bring to their family doctors. Menzies said he saw paramedics identify a neighboring resident who was showing symptoms that could be early stages of a stroke. That was a really good thing that could have saved her from having a stroke. So I'm really glad and grateful for the program, he said. The partnership has been in development since before the pandemic, and when it hit, transformed into vaccine clinics for homebound adults. The success of that operation showed the Connected Care team it had an opportunity to make something lasting, said Chang. UHN's integrated care program is supported by Ontario Health, while Toronto Community Paramedicine's funding comes from Ministry of Long-Term Care. Neither required additional funding to operate the program, a UHN spokesperson said. The paramedics involved in this program are a specifically trained team and are not taken off 911 duty to facilitate, though they are able to be redeployed if needed. The team is trained to work in people's homes and run non-traditional environments, Chang said. So for long, emergency was the only door open to people. It's a door they knew to knock on. This is a new door being opened so that they can get care at home before it becomes a crisis. And Morgan Savareed-Brookneck is a Toronto-based investigative reporter for The Star. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Star on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Our next article is under Canada, and the title is This Veteran Found a Stranger's War Medal, Why He Didn't Stop Searching Until He Found the Ontario Family It Belonged to. Kyle Scott, who has done 2 tours in Afghanistan, made it his mission to preserve the stories behind the sacrifice. And there's a picture, and it's a picture of Mr. Scott. And underneath the caption reads, Kyle Scott is helping veterans and their families locate lost or never before received medals. And that picture is taken by Sapper Scotty on Instagram. And the article is written by Femi Dawodu, who's a staff reporter, and that's Dawoodu. For Canadian Armed Forces veteran Kyle Scott, the medals he's earned have long been a symbol of sacrifice and service. Now, since returning to civilian life after serving 2 tours in Afghanistan, Scott, a 4th-generation veteran of his family, is helping others and their families reunite with their lost accolades, a task he said is crucial to preserving the stories behind them. Now based in Whitecourt, Alta, Scott's desire to give back led him to start the Canadian Veterans Ode for Missing Medals, a volunteer effort to reunite veterans and their families with the lost, missing, or unclaimed medals. The work isn't just about the medals, he said. To him, it's also about ensuring the legacies of Canada's veterans are honored. I've helped over 2,750 families get their medals for the first time or get replacements in the last 8 years, he explained. Scott said that medals go missing for all sorts of reasons. Sometimes they're stolen, sometimes misplaced by families, and sometimes given away or sold by veterans coping with difficult memories. Military service and war aren't always an enjoyable experience. Those medals can represent painful memories, he explained. But for families and for history, their return is deeply meaningful and preserves the story behind the sacrifice. A medal's journey home to Ontario. Recently, Scott helped return a medal to Windsor, Ontario, to a Windsor, Ontario family belonging to Trooper Stefan Jankowski, and it's Jankowski, who served in Afghanistan. Scott said he acquired the campaign star medal for $400 after chatting with a collector who was selling off all its memorabilia and had no idea who its original owner was. After some research, Scott learned it belonged to Jan Kotowski, who died in 2011. Scott posted a video on Facebook seeking Jan Kotowski's family. Within half an hour, I was talking with his daughter, Destiny Timothy Jankatowski, he recalled. We had this back and forth, and I reassured her this was not a scam or some crazy thing. Timothy Jankatowski helped Scott get in touch with one of her dad's old buddies, Hunter Kersey, who confirmed to him that he first noticed the medal was missing during Jankatowski's funeral. He sent the medal back to the family along with a rotation bar, a common addition for the medals, highlighting extra time served. She was overjoyed. That's all I wanted, to get it back to them. I didn't want any money, just to see it returned. On March 8th, the medal was presented to the family at an event held at the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 644 in Windsor. The reunion was emotional. She had no idea her dad had even earned a medal in Afghanistan, Scott said. Having the medal returned in such a special way has had a long-lasting impact on me and my family, Timothy Jankatowski told the Star. Upholding her father's medal for the first time, Timothy Jankatowski said, "It felt like so much more than just a medal. It felt like a piece of my dad and his legacy." Scott said his interest in military history was sparked by a conversation he had with his grandfather as a child, when he asked if he could have one of his grandfather's old medals so he could hang it in his bedroom. "He chewed me out," Scott says with a laugh, remembering how his grandfather explained that medals were not trinkets, but symbols of sacrifice, service, blood, and sweat. If he wanted one, his grandfather told him, he would have to earn his own. "So I did," Scott added. He joined the military soon after high school and served as combat engineer for 7.5 years, including 2 tours in Afghanistan, 2004 and 2006, before being medically released in 2008. Helping identify unmarked graves. For Scott, honoring veterans doesn't only include finding lost medals. He's made it his life mission to ensure that those who served are remembered properly, even long after they passed. Through his volunteer work with the Lost Post Fund, Scott actively seeks out veterans' graves that have become unmarked over time, whether through erosion, neglect, or the simple passing of years. This experience, according to him, helps him with his own post-traumatic stress disorder. Since I've been involved, I've sent in over 1,800 unmarked graves for consideration for a grave marker, he said, adding that each case is a life restored to a memory, a silent promise kept. It's important. They served our country. The least we can do is give them a permanent piece of recognition. They need to be treated well even in death. His dedication to the course leads him to visit cemeteries across the country, even while on vacation with his wife, in search of unmarked graves. If I can help one family remember or give one veteran the recognition they earned, then I know I'm still serving, Scott said. He's discovered that many veterans share his struggles, often suffering in silence. By connecting and advocating for them, Scott found a renewed sense of belonging and a way to keep serving his country. Helping others gave me my voice back, my personality, my sense of purpose. And Femi Duwadu is a staff reporter with the Star. He can be reached at his email, which is fdawodu @THESTAR.ca. The next article is under golf, and it's an opinion article. The youngest Canadian PGA Tour member in history breaks through at the Players' Championship. And back-to-back weekend rounds in the 60s moved Canadian rookie Sudarshan Yamaharu, and let me spell that out. I'm probably greatly. Anyway, let me spell the name. Sudarshan, first name, last name, Yellamaraju, into a tie for fifth place at the Players' Championship. And there's a photo of him taken by Kevin C. Cox, and it's a Getty image. And this article is written by Jason Logan of Score Golf. And Jason Logan is the editor of Score Golf magazine, which is co-owned by Torstar, the Star's parent company. Even with its field size slashed by some 24 players, the results of competitive changes being implemented by the PGA Tour, the Players' Championship continued its tradition of introducing golf fans to somebody they previously knew little about. Starring in that role this year was Canadian Sudarshan Yellamaraju. Yellamaraju was born in India, raised in Canada, and learned the game by watching YouTube. His backstory was first told in a 2018 Score Golf feature on diversity. At that time, he was a teenager and the defending Ontario amateur champion, despite never having taken formal golf lessons. He and his family weren't even sure golf was a worthwhile pursuit. Now he is a PGA Tour rookie whose name is on everyone's mind after the weekend rounds of a 66-68 at the ever-dangerous TPC Sawgrass tied him for fifth place in the beginning of the tournament of his career. In the biggest tournament of his career. He finished at 9 under par 279, 4 strokes behind winner Cameron Young. That result has not only made the 24-year-old a whole lot richer, but also more secure in his position on the PGA Tour, with his FedEx Cup ranking climbing to 30th, which will help him crack the field of the next signature event. Despite a bogey on the 72nd hole, Yellamarju's 4 scorecards at Sawgrass contained only 6 squares combined, and his Sunday number was the second lowest of anyone in the field. He said after his round that he exceeded what he thought he could do, but make no mistake, the youngest Canadian PGA Tour member in history knows very well how good he can be. I have a lot of belief in myself. I feel very confident I can be the best, Yellamarju said 2+ weeks ago when we sat down for a lengthy chat after his opening round at the Kongresist Classic in West Palm Beach, Florida. The other nugget about Yellamarju that golf fans might have picked up from the Players' telecast is that he doesn't have a coach. Much like Brooke Henderson, Yellamarju relies on feel, instinct, and his father's eyes for help. Unlike Dave Henderson, however, Charisse Yellamarju had no background in golf before his son developed an unlikely interest in it. The two learned the game together, first in Winnipeg and then in Mississauga, and even when Yellamarju was named to Golf Canada's highest performance program, he continued to chart his own course. I don't really want to coach because I just kind of like to do things myself, Yellamarju said at the Cogsnet. I know how I feel, and same thing, my dad knows how I feel when it comes to my body and tendencies in my swing and stuff like that. Obviously, some people have coaches that they see 1 or 2 times a week and it works great. I feel like golf, at the end of the day, you just have to feel it out and play it. That's what I think. My way is trying to learn different things, seeing what works for you. I feel like that's the best way to learn. One instructor he has at least bounced ideas off is Louis Mellison, who serves as an assistant coach with Golf Canada. Yellamarju was in Mellison's cohort when he joined the national program, and he eventually gained enough trust in the New Brunswicker that he asked Mellison to fill in as his caddy in the 3rd round of the PGA Tour Q School in 2024 after his father fell under the weather. Yellamarju shot 67 that day and eventually recaptured his Korn Ferry Tour card with a tie for 36. He won on the AAA circuit 5 weeks later in the Bahamas, which propelled him to a PGA Tour promotion. Mellison said Yalamaju boasts a quiet confidence, noting that every once in a while he will drop a coy line that shows his conviction. He's not brash, he's not gloating, but he's got the bravado, Mellison said. And because Mellison subscribes to a don't fix what isn't broken approach, he left Yalamaju's long, languid, powerful left-handed swing alone during Golf Canada's training sessions. It is that swing that tied Yalamaju for second in driving distance at the TPC Sawgrass and has him among the top 20 in that category on the season. A lot of times when people own their own game, they usually go a lot further than guys that are taking advice from all over the place, said Mellison. If you can stay in one lane, you have a better chance of making it. Such a throwback approach is refreshing in a sport where most who play at the highest level rely on the teachings of multiple coaches, not to mention trainers, nutritionists, and psychologists. Maybe Yalamaju hires help eventually, since no one is immune to golf's fickle nature. But for now, the young man who shone so brightly at Sawgrass is following the same script he started writing as a youngster. Kids get into the sport out of curiosity, Yalamarju told me. It's something they see, and at the beginning they probably just feel it out. That's what I think, but I guess my path is more unique than others. I've been just going with the flow of life in a way and just doing it. So far, so good. This next article is under personal finance, and the title is Don't Leave Cash on the Table. Experts give advice on how to maximize your tax return. In this article, there's a caption, and it says, it's worth looking at the list of tax benefits that may apply to you, both federally and by province or territory. A person looks at the Canadian Review Agency MyCRA login screen. And there's a photo illustration of them looking at that. And this article is written by Rikita Dubey, D-U-B-E-Y, of the Canadian Press. If you aren't careful, it's easy to leave money on the table when filing your taxes. There are scores of deductions and credits available to taxpayers, so it's worth looking at the list of tax benefits that may apply to you, both federally and by province or territory. Experts also say paying attention to government policies could make that job easier and help lower your tax bill. A lot of times when the government makes announcements, they're usually retroactive, said Gary Vittoras, and that's Vittoratos, National Tax Specialist at UFile. He said people should parse through federal budget headlines and see if there are any goodies announced for taxpayers, which is especially true during election years. Vittoras said most people don't need to be a tax bug or have special expertise, but it's smart to watch for such announcements and see how they might apply. For example, the federal government announced it reduced the tax rate for the lowest tax bracket from 15% to 14% last May. Since the changes were announced mid-year, Canadians will be taxed at 14.5% on that portion of the taxable income, with a rate dropping to 14% this year. For 2025, that means a 14.5% tax rate on any taxable income up to $57,375. Earnings beyond that threshold are taxed at higher rates. It might be helpful to think of tax season as a year-round process, Vittoras said. It is not just 4 months out of the year, because you spend on things that are eligible for your tax return throughout the year. Vittoras recommended people set up a folder, either physical or virtual, and add any receipts or documents that could be applicable when tax season rolls around. Then filter out whatever you don't need when filing your taxes. He said that the biggest culprit for missed credits is omissions. Not making claims for credits and deductions, even when you qualify because you can't find the supporting documents. The most common one is missing receipts, such as for medical expenses or charitable donations, that can be used for tax credits, he said. often people don't remember to save proof of payments to a dentist, walk-in clinic, or prescription drugs throughout the year, he added. Couples should also remember they can further lower their tax bills by combining expenses, said Brian Lee, certified financial planner and founder of Twain Financial in Vancouver. For example, spouses can claim joint expenses such as medical bills or fertility treatments under the lower earning spouse to maximize their return. Canadians who are working remotely can claim work from home expenses, although they need a tax form from their employer, he said. For those who bought their first home last year, Lee said they could save up to $1,500 because of the first-time home buyer's tax credit. Carry forwards can also help maximize your return, experts say. In some cases, taxpayers can bank credits or deductions for use in future years, such as with the registered retirement savings deduction or tuition fee credit. For example, full-time post-secondary students often accumulate huge tax credits on their tuition, but their federal taxes during that time of their life are low. Vitatora said that most students don't need the full refund amount from their tuition credit to reduce or mitigate their taxes because they aren't typically high earners. Instead, they can choose to carry forward until they land a full-time job within a higher income tax bracket. If they banked a bunch of tuition tax credit, they can grab that credit lump sum and use it on their return and really reduce their tax significantly, he said. Students can also choose to transfer the credits to their parents to help them lower their tax bills. He said there's a myth that if you're a student or in a lower income tax bracket, you don't have to contribute to an RRSP to get tax deductions. You could bank them and use them in a future year when you get your promotion, when you get a bigger job, when you've got more money, he said. Taxpayers would need to notify the Canada Revenue Agency if they decide to do so, and this report by the Canadian Press was first published March 11, 2026. This next article is under personal finance again, and it's from music fans to the Sweet Tooth, free and affordable events to ring in the spring this March break. And this article is written by Laura Grady, who is a personal finance reporter. March break is finally here, and while kids are rejoicing, parents and caregivers are hoping to keep their spending in check. A recent report from TD shows that 44% of Canadians are planning to spend less on entertainment this year, and 55% are aiming to dine out less. At the same time, 63% said their commitment to buying Canadian is stronger this year than last. With that in mind, we've rounded up some of the best free and affordable activities and experiences the city has to offer this March break and beyond. For arts and cultural aficionados, the Art Gallery of Ontario always offers free admission to any Ontarians younger than 25 and is also offering fun family activities. Grab an AGO Play activity booklet so kids can make art, do scavenger hunts, take quizzes, and more during your visit. At the Hands-On Center, little ones can design their own paper cameras and create a film strip of imagined photograph inspired by Paul McCartney photographs 1963-64 Eyes of the Storm. Adult admission is $30, but you can save money if you wait. Admission is free on the first Wednesday night of each month between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. At the Aga Khan Museum, those 25 and younger are always free, and adult admission is just $10. Tickets aren't required to visit the atrium, courtyard, Belvedere Room, Dewan Restaurant, and Museum Shop. Admission is also free on Wednesdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Between now and March 20th, the Aga Khan is hosting various arts and crafts workshops for the whole family. You can even book a workshop for $20 to learn about mosaic art or clay tile making. If you're looking to build in some more contemporary art, check out the 16 new artworks at Building Black Amorpha Spiritual Starships, the latest series of Ghanaian Canadian multidisciplinary artist and Lego sculptor Iko Namako, and that's EKOWNIMAKO at Harborfront Center. Admission is free for all ages. Admission to the Scarborough Museum is free too, and during March break, you can drop by for a warm drink and a snack prepared on the museum's historic stove, and encourage some friendly family competition with historic and modern board games. You can also find free fun at the city's other museums, including Mackenzie House, print a postcard on a historic press, Spadina Museum, trade vintage teacups, Tomora Mills, learn the history of domestic animals, and Colborne Lodge, take an Indigenous-led tour of Hyde Park. From March 17th to 22nd, stop by STACKT, Stacked Market, at 28 Bathurst Street to celebrate the Spring Equinox Festival with kid-friendly workshops, DIY activities, and family-friendly mediation sessions, plus live musical performances. For outdoorsy types, spend the day at Fort York and see a flintlock musket demonstration, take a guided tour, or visit the schoolroom to practice slate writing. Admission is free, but for $5, kids aged 6 to 12 can take part in a baking workshop. March break is also a great time to check out the 5 installations at winter stations at Woodbine Beach, which you can experience until the end of March. For music fans, the Canadian Opera Company is offering a free concert series now through May. Located in the Richard Bradshaw Amphitheater at the Four Seasons Center, the series showcases performances from artists all around the world in an intimate space. Admission is free, but it's first come, first serve, so don't be late. Torontonians older than 19 who are looking for some evening fun should check out the Big Fam Jam every Tuesday night until July 28th at Drone Traberna, a weekly open jam that welcomes instrumentalists, vocalists, and live music lovers. For animal lovers, the Toronto Zoo is hosting special break events with extended hours, 9:30 a.m. to 6 p.m., and discounted winter ticket prices all week. On Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, kids can solve a lunar challenge at the March break Moon Mission, a pop-up presented by the Ontario Science Centre. For little ones, there's a Paw Patrol character meet and greet on Tuesday and Thursday. At Ripley's Aquarium, which has also extended March break hours, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., kids can learn about deep sea science between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. on weekdays. Flex tickets online start at $50 for adults, $33 for ages 6 to 13, $15 for kids ages 3 to 5, and $33 for seniors. Booking online is usually cheaper than paying at the door. Time tickets are also cheaper. Head to Hyde Park Zoo to see the infamous Capybaras, and that's Capybaras, and twin Mouflon, Mouflon lambs, Haley and Miranda. Admission is always free, and while the llama pen is closed until May, you can still check out the Barbary sheep, bison, and West Highland cattle. If you're closer to the east side, take a stroll around Riverdale Farm and check out the pigs, horses, and sheep. Admission is free, and the farm is open daily from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Stop by the Meeting House for crafts, games, and farming demonstrations throughout the day. For fans of STEM, Lumiere, The Art of Life, a free outdoor light exhibition at Ontario Place, is open nightly from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. until March 27th. Walk around Trillium Park and take in 14 unique and interactive installations created by Ontario artists. During March break, families can also warm up and discuss their favorite installations around the fire pit, weather permitting. For Sweet Tooth, Ontario is home to multiple maple syrup festivals in the spring. The Courtright Center for Conservation and Woodbridge Lodge hosts its annual Sugarbush Maple Syrup Festival through March break. complete with horse and wagon rides. Admission costs $12.35 plus HST for ages 14 to 64, $7.95 for kids 4 to 13, and free for kids under 3. Seniors get a discount. There's also the Sugar Bush Maple Syrup Festival at Bruce's Mill, where you can catch maple syrup demonstrations, live entertainment, including drum circles, horse-drawn carriage rides, food trucks, and activities for kids. Admission is $12.35 plus HST for adults, $7.95 for kids age 4 through 13, and free for kids under 3 with the purchase of an adult ticket. Seniors get a discount. Out in Oshawa, admission to Purple Woods Maple Syrup Festival, which runs until March 29th, costs $8 and is free for kids younger than 2. Be sure to get some taffy for $2. In Oakville, the Maple Syrup Festival at Bronte Creek Provincial Park runs until March 29th, and a daily vehicle permit, which covers admission, is $18. Take a guided tour to see different ways of collecting and making syrup and learn how to make fresh maple syrup before visiting the farm animals in the yard. Be sure to budget in some extra to enjoy a hot pancake meal starting at $6. Yum. For kids with a sense of adventure, the Village at Black Creek is hosting the Maple Mystery at the Village every day from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. from March 16th through March 20th. Families can work alongside Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson to solve riddles, uncover clues, and question villagers as they stroll through interactive maple-themed station. Tickets are $27.45 plus HST for adults, and you can get 50% off kids' tickets up to 3 children, which normally cost $22.50 with the purchase of an adult or senior ticket, which costs $24.95. For everything else, rainy day, the Toronto Public Library is hosting around 275 free activities for kids, teens, and the whole family at branches across the city. There's something for everyone, whether your kids are into board games, puppetry, storytelling, music, crafts, trivia, movies, or magic shows. And Laura Grady is a personal finance reporter for The Star. You can reach her at her email, which is LGAR. Let me start again. Her email is LGRADY @THESTAR.ca. And you've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the March 16th, 2026 issue of the Toronto Star. Your reader has been Judy. That's me. And thank you so much for the honor of reading to you. And I hope you take beautiful, wonderful care of yourselves and have an amazing day. Thank you so much.